Joining me now is New York Democratic Congressman Adriano Espaillat. He is deputy chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
I want to start off just by talking to you about this horrific news that we learned today, the Attorney General connecting the killings of those two Americans and the kidnappings at the border to the cartels. What was your reaction to hearing the news, and what does it say about the U.S. policy as it relates to these cartels?
Well, I was horrified, obviously, to hear that two Americans were killed, two others may have been injured. This speaks to the level of violence at that region in Matamoros, one of those borderline states in Mexico. And it just highlights how dangerous it is for women and children to even cross through that territory and expose themselves to that level of violence. Mexicans are not migrating to the United States in large numbers. They're coming from other countries. They're coming from Nicaragua. They're coming from Venezuela. They're coming from Cuba, from Haiti, from other countries. They're fleeing what I feel is a crisis of democracy in the hemisphere that we have not attended for some time. And we must continue on our efforts to really go one by one and determine whether or not these asylum seekers have a legitimate claim to be here in the United States.
Let me ask you, because as you heard my colleague Monica Alba reporting on, President Biden, when he was meeting with the president of Mexico, secured new commitments as it relates to not just dealing with cartels, but the broader fentanyl crisis, the root causes of migration, if you will. Is Mexico doing enough in your estimation?
They should be doing more. But again, this is a crisis of democracy, of violence, of political violence, gang violence, natural disasters and environmental crisis, droughts that create food security issues that force women and children and families to walk thousands of miles, in some cases across the El Darién, the Panamanian jungle, and come to our border.
Congressman, can you get specific? Just what more do you want to see the Mexican government do to address this crisis?
There is no infrastructure in Mexico right now to provide some assistance to families that we're saying you must seek asylum in Mexico before you seek asylum here. There is no infrastructure, no reliable or safe infrastructure to provide to these families. The violence that just occurred in Matamoros highlights that fact. And so we're asking families to expose themselves to a very violent situation in Mexico across the border. So we must continue to provide the kind of a one-by-one effort to rely on our principles that have guided our nations for many, many decades, that we are a nation that provides some level of cover and some level of harbor to those that are seeking asylum for legitimate reasons. And we can do that. We, the United States of America, could determine who's in danger because the government may want to assassinate them, or gang may want to kill them, or maybe facing a clear and present danger because of a natural disaster. We can do that.
Congressman, let me ask you about this latest reporting that NBC News has confirmed that the Biden administration is considering reviving the family detention policy for migrants, which, of course, the president had come into office and ended. What say you? What is your reaction to hearing that?
Well, we were encouraged to hear from the White House press secretary today that it just may be a rumor. We're hoping that it's just a rumor. We're going to be speaking to Secretary Mayorkas later on today on whether or not it is, in fact, just a rumor. And we don't want our nation taking a U-turn and going back to the ways of Donald Trump and his administration.
So what's your message to the president, as this clearly is a topic of discussion inside his administration?
Well, my message is what has been revealed by reliable research and what was reported today by the New York Times, that exposing children to detention harms them dramatically. And in some cases, some experts feel that it harms them permanently. And so that's not the way to go. We should, there's ankle bracelets, it's not my favorite method, and there's phone tracking. 80% of the families and folks have returned and complied with the rules of the game with regards to ankle bracelets and phone tracking. So we should continue in a direction that we take a case-by-case effort and determine whether or not these folks are in danger of losing their lives, and they're seeking asylum in the United States of America.
Congressman, I just want to be very clear about something you've said, though. You have not spoken to anyone at the White House about this yet. Your first conversation about this will be later with the DHS secretary. Okay, so you have not confirmed it yourself. Do you think the mere fact that reviving family detentions has been floated as a possibility, is that a betrayal to some extent of people who voted for the president?
It's concerning to me and many others in the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, but we will have a constructive conversation with this administration. We know that the president has been sensitive to the issue of women and children crossing the border and making sure that we provide the best kind of service and safety net that the nation can offer. And we're hopeful and optimistic that, in fact, this is just a rumor and that we won't go back to family detention.
Let me ask you about the vice president. She joined you back in 2018 in opposing appropriations for expanding family detentions for migrants. Do you want to see her forcefully speak out about this?
We know that the vice president has been to the region. She has visited those countries.
Has she done enough, though? She's the point person on the root causes of migration.
I believe that she has. And she's come back with a report that basically says that this is a very complicated issue. And therefore, we want her to also weigh in if possible now, because she has the experience. She has been on the ground and spoken to families and officials from those governments and children. She's seen the children. And I've seen the children down at the border in the previous administration, and I certainly don't want to see them again under the same circumstances.
Let me ask you about asylum. There's a new AP poll that has a plurality of people saying that they want a decreased number of asylum seekers. What do you make of that? And how does that fit into this broader debate about how to address the border?
Perhaps they're not understanding the dynamics in the hemisphere. And the dynamics in Venezuela, for example, in Nicaragua, in Haiti, in Cuba, and some other countries. They're not understanding the dynamic in countries that are facing severe climate crisis. And this is real, and it's showing up in our border. And for far too long, we turned our heads and made believe that it wasn't there. And now it's showing up right in our doorstep. So we must address it. Yeah. We must be a partner with the hemisphere in addressing those critical issues of democracy and environment and bring some solutions to them.
Congressman, very quickly, the Biden administration says they are going to be prepared for when Title 42 is lifted in about 2 months. Do you believe the Biden administration is prepared for what's to come, the expected surge in migrants once Title 42 is lifted?
I believe that they're making the changes and the efforts that
are they ready?
I believe that they will be ready, but family detention is not by any means a model that I would support.
Okay, Congressman Espaillat, really appreciate your joining us to discuss this incredibly complicated and urgent issue. Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.